Heretic is a brand new film that stars Hugh Grant in a horror film, and narratively it's all about a couple of girls, a couple of religious girls that go door to door to door talking about their Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, because their religion is Mormonism, and with any good door-to-door type of situation that you're in, you're going to run into some weirdos. And that is where Hugh Grant comes in. Now, he doesn't seem like a weirdo all at first. He just seems like Hugh Grant, he's silly, relatable, he cracks a few jokes here and there, but he's also really, really witty, and he's smart, and he challenges these girls about their religion and what it all means, and he starts breaking down theological points that are incredibly thought-provoking in a real-world situation, but of course this is horror, so things start to get a little bit darker as it goes along, and obviously it is a little bit of a cat and mouse type of film where Hugh Grant's character is consistently trying to be on top while the girls try to squeeze out from under him and make some valid points of their own as well, all within the confines of a film that is indeed a horror film. A lot of people are going to be pointing out this film as a religious horror film, which it is, but I would actually point out that it's much more of a theological horror film. There's a lot of things going in the film pertaining to theology, questions pertaining to God in general, to how many stories in the Bible seem to relate to other things that predated the Bible. There's a lot of correlations and comparisons in the film to things like music, to board games, to fast food. The list goes on and on and on in order for this guy to maintain an upper hand while he's trying to convince and challenge these girls in what they believe ultimately. It's crazy because decades ago this movie could have been made exactly the same way, just without the horror element. Because this movie is already filled to the brim with a ton of dialogue. It's one of the best dialogue written films that I've seen all year in general. And years and years ago, they would have made a movie just on that, just on the theological discussion. That alone is tense as it is. But when you start to legitimately just throw in elements of horror throughout the film, it actually makes the movie just that much more perfect. And Hugh Grant chews up his lines here. If it weren't for Hugh Grant, if it was just played by some other Joe Schmo, it wouldn't be as good, because you gotta think about as many charismatic actors out there, especially maybe some aging charismatic actors out there. There's not a ton. I was for sure invested in this story. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot to ingest in order to fully appreciate what's going on. But I feel like there's a lot of people in this world right now that are either currently religious or at some point in their life they have gone through trying to find themselves and discover themselves and to try out different religions, things that make them feel whole. And if you are anybody like that, I feel like you're going to appreciate the film. If you're currently fully religious, there's certainly going to be moments in the film that upset you or offend you because you're most likely for censorship of certain things. However, if you are somebody that used to be religious and either aren't so much anymore or are completely atheist at this point, you're gonna love the movie. If I were to say any negatives of the film at all, it would just be that throughout the runtime of the film, this character that's played by Hugh Grant makes a lot of different arguments throughout the film. And there's some arguments that he makes that I would have preferred that he just stood by, basically, and just kept going with that argument. I won't exactly explain what arguments he makes throughout the film, though there are a couple here and there where I'm like, that's a really good point. He should just stick with that because that would be awesome. But he often switches gears and he just talks about something else and something else and something else as he consistently and constantly challenges these girls' perceptions and their beliefs, which I guess that is the point of the film. But it's just that some of these points that he makes, I just wish he just stood by those and just kept with it because it was pretty cool. Past all that, just when you're talking about like cinematography and performances, just technical things, the film is made really, really well. And honestly, there's very little to complain about. Even if you hate horror, I could see you appreciating it because a majority of it doesn't really feel like horror. It feels tense, it feels kind of like a psychological thriller most of the time. Hugh Grant's definitely creepy, but he does make a lot of valid points, and if you haven't seen the movie, if you're thinking about maybe watching it, go ahead and check it out. I think there's a lot that you could appreciate with it. I'm gonna be rating it an A letter grade. Not A minus, not A plus. It's not a perfect film. And in terms of horror, it's not anything that I personally deem terrifying. I actually went door to door myself, and I've run into a number of creepy people myself. People that have lured me into their basement while they were barely clothed at all. I've been there. There's some real weirdos and wacko, and I mean, I'm not gonna go too deep into that, but just say that at certain points, I understood it, But go ahead, check out the movie. If you have already seen it, please let me know in the comments down below what you thought about it. Are you yourself religious? And if so, or if not, please let me know how it affected you. Also, make sure to hit that like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with my next review, whenever that may be. But until then, peace out.